Which river were you most familiar with, and
I
what were
wasn't
your...
familiar with any river then.
You didn't go to any river at all?
No, I lived in Camberwell, next to Denmark Hill Station.
I know it very well. Yeah.
Oh, well, you know about it.
There's no river around.
When I was born, it was still steam railway.
Yeah.
And there were two lines there. There was the Crystal Palace line.
That's it.
And the Catford Route line.
Yeah. And you got that fantastic cutting that goes under.
And when they pulled out to go under the Denmark Hill Road,
yeah.
They had to then go up a steep gradient the other side.
Yeah.
So they had to get going quite as best they could to get some bit of speed up to take them up the hill.
Yeah.
And the first I can remember is wondering why it all went quiet when I was about 3 when they would change over to electricity.
Yeah.
Of course, the other line had an overhead system of electricity, which they had then abandoned and converted to their third rail.
Yeah. And then you wouldn't have that smell in the air of the steam trains anymore, which I actually quite like.
Yeah.
I mean, my granny used to live in the railway cottages down by Dawlish in Devon, and we used to stay with her in the summer, and we used to love it because they still had steam down there when they didn't up here. You know, they'd already gone to electric, and we used to just love that.
Yeah.
And well, what are your earliest memories of the Quaggy then, and the Ravensbourne?
Well, the Quaggy would be sometime after the war. Would be probably, let me think. Well, I started after the war getting a bike. I had no ideas about a car and getting one, and there were not many about even then.
Yeah.
And so.
Were you living around here then, or were you still over in Camberwell?
No, I'd moved here. My father died when I was 10 years old.
That's young.
In 1934.
Yeah, that's young.
So my mother married another person, Mr. Hewlett, who I had as a stepfather, and got on quite well with him.
Yeah.
So, and we moved to the other side of the road at number 35, which is down the other end.
Yeah.
About 1936.
Yeah.
So.
I know. I listened to your interview that you did with Pamela a while ago, and you were saying that, and I noticed that there are all those new buildings down the end there because they were hit by a doodlebug.
That's right. I saw that on the way to work.
That's a lucky scrape.
Yeah.
Really. But and so you had a bike and you used to cycle down to the river.
Yes, I either cycled or I got on a train quite a lot as well to take it to Swanley.
Oh, really?
But when I started out, it was on I didn't know the area, and I rode about all over the place to get to know the local area.
Yeah. How old were you then? Roughly?
In my 20s, I suppose.
Yeah, young lad, really.
Yes, I was born in 1923, so in 1947, 48 when I got the bike.
Yeah.
And I decided to go out cycling to get to the country and get some ideas about the country, and I was interested in photographing the country. I made a slide film that I could take to clubs to go through along the Darrett, I called it.
Yeah.
And I put that together.
And you were taking pictures of what? Animals and flora and fauna?
Anything I thought was interesting, mostly landscapes.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, I didn't do very well on close-up work on a lot of the natural history stuff.
Yeah. But I know you've done a lot of landscape drawing in your books and what have you, so you obviously had a bit of an eye for a landscape.
Yes, they'd be largely copied from slides.
Ah.
Because I took a lot of 2x2 slides.
Yeah.
And that's what I put together as the subject of a
These are the old glass slides, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. I've got a box of that. My dad used to take those, and I've still got them. And there are two sheets of glass with the film strip in the middle, and he taped it up with that black sticky tape.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And I've got a box of those at home, and we used to love those, and we've still got the projector for those as well somewhere. but the thing is, rather than if you compare those to the 35mm that you then got, the detail on those big glass ones is so good.
Oh yes, they're remarkable.
And you can actually hold them up. You don't need to project them. You can hold them up in the
No.
light and see what's going on completely.
Yes, you put two together and get a stereoscopic view.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. When you no, looking at your book, the Quaggy River and its catchment area, which
Yes, that was a
we've
lot
been
later than that.
yeah you covered a good deal of ground when you were making when you were
Well,
doing
I had
this.
the bike and I was riding the bike until I was 90. No,
Yeah.
80, not 80.
Yeah.
So I went out that way on the bike and got familiar with that part of it.
Yeah. Okay. But did the job turn out to be a bit bigger than you thought it would be? You know, because the catchments are big.
Oh, it's a big area, yes.
It's a big old area, isn't
Yes,
it?
it went very comparable with Ravensbourne as a river and the Poole River. There were three of them together.
Yeah.
And I did that one. I had a book on it telling me the details of where the streams and that were, and I took them from the map and all sorts of things.
Was that Baxter's book?
I don't know what it was now.
Yeah.
I probably got it from the local library
Yeah.
or the local history library.
Yeah.
So I worked out and picked out those points where you could see something.
Yeah.
Where the valley was showing or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. I noticed that you were sort of in somewhere in your book, because quite often these tributaries are difficult to see.
Yeah.
You know, if you're actually walking around, riding around, it's difficult to see. But if you've got a bit of a trained eye, or rather you know what a landscape looks like, you can say, well, that looks to me like a river valley.
Yeah.
So that I noticed that you actually, because you've got a big old list of tributaries.
Oh yeah.
And some of them, you know, are just coming up in sports fields. You know, they're just.
Oh yes, they're quite small streams, a lot of them.
Yeah.
On the tributaries, and only a few places can you actually conveniently see them.
Yeah. So you were on your bike, and then you were on foot. You're tramping across ground as well when you're looking.
Well, when I was on the bike, I would put it aside somewhere.
Yeah.
And then walk about a bit and then come back again and go a bit further.
Yeah.
But I never got out on my foot, only like that.
Yeah. Did you have when you were doing during the course of making the book? And did you have a favourite bit that you really liked? Any nice little quiet bit, a very natural bit maybe?
Not particularly, no. I didn't have anything, because I knew it very well from goes down Lee High Road and winds about down there.
Yeah.
And to the Manor House Library.
Yeah.
So that I was quite familiar with those and liked doing that.
But when you got out to places like the Little Quaggy and out towards Eltham and whatnot, I mean, it starts to actually meander around a little bit on its own without being, because obviously when it's through Lee and Lewisham, it's been straightened and what have you. So, I mean, there must have been little bits up there where you thought this is actually quite pleasant.
Well,
you know?
perhaps the Dutch House and eastward from that, up Sidcup bypass, where it's high ground on the left, which is a grass nature reserve type of thing, and on the other side it goes up again the other way, so you get a nice.
Is that by the riding school? There's a
riding school somewhere there.
Yeah. We walked in the middle of that about 6 months ago with waders on, all the way up through the middle. That's beautiful.
Mm.
And again, you're right by the road, but when you're in the middle of it, you can't hear the road.
No.
You can't hear anything at all.
No.
You talked to Pam a little bit last time about Pamela mentioned the river restoration project at Sutcliffe Park, which you mentioned in your book. How important, in your view, are restoration projects along the Quaggy and the Ravensbourne?
Well, quite important. After the flood of 1968, it was flooded at Rusty Green and a long way along the river. and it was decided to do something about it, and they put quite a bit of it into the Deptford end into concrete channel. Well, the council just said no, they couldn't do that. They would have to have a more natural riverbank. So that was why there's no concrete apart from where it goes under the railway in Ladywell Fields. And they've now done more work on it and removed the old railings that stopped it from going to the river.
And some of the concrete too.
And it is quite different now. They recently finished it. And what it was and the description of it I showed you in that Quaggy Ravensbourne tour that I did from Deptford to Lower Sydenham.
Alright.
So there's only a bit at Lower Sydenham where it used to go through the old gasworks. They've had to reroute it, and for safety and other reasons they've had to put it into concrete channel there.
Yeah. And from Lower Sydenham, that's right, and there's that bit, is that Linear Park? It's dead straight and it's channel, it's concrete channel and what have you. But,
yes, as you go down the end of the Sainsbury's Road there and you get onto the place there.
Yeah.
And that's in the concrete channel, but that's because it's been re-channelled.
That's right.
So it used to go down and go under the railway and then through the gasworks.
Yeah.
But I used it for quenching the retorts.
Yeah.
And then out through the other way and back to the river.
Yeah.
Where it becomes the normal bank again, where the council told them they couldn't put.
Who told them when are you going back to 1968? Yeah. So who told them that they couldn't put that in then?
Council planning people.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
Because obviously
it was just then after they joined up with Deptford.
Yeah.
So they had the whole length of route from Deptford to Lower Sydenham in the council hands.
Yeah.
And they could plan for it.
Yeah.
And that's when they made the stipulation that you could only put actual riverbank.
Because they handed it over to the London County Council, didn't they, or something, because they couldn't, because of I think it was the flooding in the 60s that they finally had to do something about it.
Yeah.
Because it flooded so many properties in the Quaggy and also the Ravensbourne.
Oh, it's always flooded, yeah.
Yeah, I remember by the old jam
they left
factory.
the Quaggy out. They didn't deal with the Quaggy. They only did the Ravensbourne.
Yeah.
And they included the Poole River.
Yeah.
But the Quaggy was still flooding and causing problems right up till a few years ago.
Yeah. Probably sort of like the.
Yeah, it used to flood from Nottingham Tarn, and that in times of heavy rain that would flood.
Yeah.
And so that you had to go careful. They wouldn't open it. You couldn't get in there in the morning until it drained away.
Yeah. I remember my dad and my grandfather had a factory where Tesco's is now in Lewisham Centre.
Oh yeah.
And it was called the Broadway Press.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Do you? Well, I used to work there when I was a lad, when I was 10, when I was, and I remember sometimes when I used to go to work with my dad, we couldn't get through because the bridge there, well, by Maggie's Caff now, was 5 feet, 6 feet in water. You couldn't get through there. But of course that's all changed now because you don't get quite so much coming down from Sutcliffe Park and what have you.
Oh no, they're working on a different system of managing the flooding by holding it back upriver in big pools or places where it could be stored before they release it to go down to the Thames, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, do you think that's an effective solution?
It would be if it's done big enough and properly. And they've done other works as well to not only that, but to prevent flooding from running down the roads. Could come off the hill, Blythe Hill, and other places like that as Elton.
Yeah.
And dug big holes where they can store water and doesn't come to run down the road
Yeah.
and flood the bottom of the road.
Yeah. And of course now it's because you get a lot of runoff, you get a lot of water going straight into the river. It's you can go from low to high in the river in half an hour. You know?
Oh yes, it doesn't take a lot of time to if it's heavy rain.
Yeah. So getting back to this, the importance of river restoration, do you imagine that today's younger generation can be reintroduced to nature, if you like, through such projects?
Well, it has to be, because we can't go on as we are.
No.
In getting bigger and bigger, and the cries for growth, it's impossible.
Yeah. So what place do you think nature has in all of that, and especially river nature?
Well, for everybody's pleasure and interest and the living ourselves for the future, it's most important.
Yeah, and obviously the Quaggy's got a big contribution to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so probably the better thing, the more restoration projects they can do, the better for the young people growing up.
Yes, provided they're not this concrete stuff which they used to do, which they've abandoned. And they do like they've done in Sutcliffe Park, which is make a proper river there.
Yeah.
And use the concrete channels that are still there under the ground as a particular overflow when there's more water coming down and the river can reasonably cope with without flooding.
And what do you think the council, what do you think their interest is these days? Do you think it is in providing sort of natural habitats, or is it really just...
I guess they're getting more interested in that sort of thing. With it's Glendale they employ, and I suppose they take it up to the east side of Lee, where it becomes into Greenwich there. And they're more enthusiastic than I think Greenwich is in some ways.
Yeah. I've just got a couple of quick questions, and then Pam might have a couple of quick questions. But I've got, this is actually, because I mean I know that when you researched it, you went to Hasted's book. Yeah, and Clinch also wrote about it, and this is all of this is in with John Coulter in the thing.
Yes, he's retired now. I didn't know he.
I didn't know he's retired, has he?
Yes, he just retired.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's retired before he's old enough to officially retire.
Yeah.
But I suppose he's built up a bit of backing behind him, and he's managed it.
I bet he's glad.
I was quite surprised really when I found out he'd gone.
No, I didn't know that at all. But anyway, there were a couple of things that Baxter and also Clinch and Hasted have talked about too. I just want to talk about as far as you're concerned. There were two issues in there that there are differences of opinion. First of all, how the Ravensbourne was actually named originally. That's one thing. And also, what is the theory about Caesar's Well? Do you have a theory?
I can't really say much about those.
No.
Not that I know anything, only what I would read in a book.
Yeah, okay.
And those were some of the books I consulted, I suppose, to get some background into the whole picture.
Yeah. Okay, well that's, I mean, for the moment, I mean, do you have any...
Well, I just, when I was last here, Ken gave me a little cycle book, and when I got home, I wanted to, it's called Cycleway 21 or Waterlink Way. And when Ken gave this to me, he said that there have been some changes since he wrote this book. I'm not that familiar with it, so, but what I've done is I've looked through it, and I wanted to pick up on something he said to me when I was last here. And when I was last here, Ken, you mentioned about Thames Water drilling into to prospect for
that's
water.
one of the major changes, yes.
And they drilled into the chalk and to prospect for water in 1993. And then you say that that there is now an active pumping station, 2004. And I just wondered if you could tell me a little bit more about where they drilled.
Yeah, well, what happened about that, they drilled in two places, in Ladywell Fields in the south field near to the what was it, one of the couple of roads that come down. They put a borehole down 200 feet or whatever it was to get to the chalk, which was water bearing. So that's, I've got a small pumping station there now, I think, which brings the water up and straight into the mains. Don't need to touch it. And the same applies along the Waterlink Way. It'll tell you where it is. It's a little north of Winford Road. Winford Road, yes. It'll be about there.
Okay.
And again, they're drilling into an aquifer.
Yes. And they're not taking water from the river, that's still there. And they drilled their borehole down into the chalk, so they said something like 200 feet, and just left a square box at the top where the borehole was. And then later on they decided they wanted to build water, so they then built this pumping station in the same, on the site of this borehole. So that's what you see now, and this is a major change. What you see now is their the Thames Water pumping station, which got railings all round it, and that's where the water is brought up, and they've got pipes leading from there across the fields to put it into the mains.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you want to ask Ken about himself on this film? Would you like to ask him a bit about himself? Or?
Yeah, you worked on quite a few books with John Coulter, haven't you?
Yes.
And
well, I didn't do it with him. I got the information partly from him.
I see. Yes.
He wrote his own books, or there's somebody else he has as a collaborator. He's written quite a lot of books. Of course, I've got most of them here.
Yeah.
On his own bat.
Yeah. And so you've right. So you've so you only really came to rivers when you were in your 20s. So what did you used to do when you were down in Campbell? How did you used to amuse yourself?
Well, my father was a nurseryman, and he had the Denmark Hill nurseries which are above the railway tunnel.
Yeah.
Well, they were.
Yeah. That's where the Salvation Army place is now, isn't it?
Get quite a bit to go there, go and play about in the above the railway, and there were two banks on either side that went with the Rosacea nurseries, it was called. But I was never really interested in doing any work in that line. So, the house I lived in was at 21 Windsor Road, and it was a stables and a coach house, an isolated house, and the flat that I lived in was up outside staircase that went up at the top. And I used to play about then because it was at the back gardens of all the big houses in Denmark Hill. And eventually there was a post up from Borderley Hospital as well, because it was away from the main Denmark Windsor Road.
Yeah.
There was something that came to mind then. When you wrote your little books, Ken, you wrote them in your own hand.
Oh yeah.
And did you want them to be printed in your own hand?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It
that's
was
great.
done deliberately.
Yeah, that's
to keep
great.
them individual
Yeah.
and a sort of obviously a single person's work,
Yes.
not just something that you could type out or do anything like that.
That's just great.
So a number of people have commented on it. Looks like a handwritten, and said how good it was for that sort of thing.
Yes, it became more personal to read it as well.
Yes, I
That's it.
wanted it to be particularly personal.
Yeah.
The only book that I did was a hardback book was another river connected one, but not river connected. It was the Croydon Canal, and its neighbours. And I had that typed out and did the drawings in it myself, which I copied from the erasable ones, or copied from slides again.
Mm.
Yeah, because I seem to recall some years ago that the Croydon Canal was featured as an article in the news shopper, and it was, I believe it was done by the historian Bob Oakley, and he spoke about it. So that was quite interesting. I didn't know there was a little book written on it.
Was there any particular reason why you had that typed out, or was it's just
Well, I wanted it to be more conventional.
a bit more formal?
Yeah, it was too big to write out myself.
Yeah.
It's a hardback book of about 200 or 300 pages.
So can you saying that you photographed a lot of the when you went on your cycle rides, you photographed a lot of things, and that you had them made up to slides, and you gave talks on them.
That's right.
And,
Yeah.
and where did you give these talks?
Camera clubs.
The Camera Club.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were 2x2 slides, and I used to give them to a number of camera clubs, and I deliberately put it together for that purpose.
Yeah.
So it was 100 slides, and goes from the Long Reach with the Thames, where the Quaggy River comes down. No, not the Quaggy, the Darrens
The
comes
Darren,
down,
Yeah.
and but up to Westram where it rises.
Where does it rise in Westram then? Does
The other side of Westram from here.
what, towards
here.
Limpsfield? Or, oh no, is it? You mean as it?
Nearer London.
No, up towards French Street, up that way, as the
Yeah.
land rises above
I can't
Westram.
think of the name.
The other,
now.
it is the other side, isn't it?
This would be east of Westram, and it comes up from a hill on the south side.
Yeah.
So you can sit there. It was enough stream big enough to power a small mill,
Oh, okay.
and it used to come down from there, and you could
Yeah.
see it riding. And then
Hosey Common, somewhere like Hosey Common, or
That's the other side. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the other side of Westram. We used
That's
to go
right.
there with
Just trying to think where,
yeah.
Natural History
Yeah.
Society.
because I
Yeah.
do know that area around there.
Well, I moved from Keston to go and live in Toys Hill,
Oh yeah.
That's beautiful there.
and because I know French Street and Hosey,
Mm.
and of course, Chartwell
Yeah.
and all that. So I used to cycle around there.
Yeah, that's as far as I ever used to go on the bike. I was never a big cyclist into covering miles.
That's
and
not
miles.
bad though.
Yeah,
That's not
it's
bad.
25
It was as
miles,
much as
isn't it?
I could do.
I think
Yeah.
Westram is 25 miles.
I
It's
think-
all uphill to Toys Hill, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Braisted, I've done it. Yeah, it's
Good view over the top, but
you can freewheel all the way down into Four
yeah.
Elms, just about.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's quite a little trek, that one.
Okay.
But I know there is a little river valley there. I know
mm.
in that follows the road along from Westram to Sundridge, and I think that.
Oh yes, I've got pictures of that.
That's right, and I think that's what you're talking. That's the little source that you're talking about.
Yeah, yes, that would be
That's
getting
right.
near the
Yeah.
source. Yes.
Yeah. Good. Well, is there any thoughts that you've had while we've had this conversation? Any thoughts that you've had about the river? Anything sort of popped into your mind about the Quaggy or anything like that that you
Yes. Let me see now. From the Dutch house, alongside the road on the channel,
yeah,
and then up to the road a little bit further on.
yeah,
And many years ago now, it must be 30 or 40 years ago, somebody was digging in their back garden and they came across some remains, and they contacted the Horniman Museum about it, and they said they thought they were probably Roman remains, and I told them to stop digging and cover it back up again until somebody could look into it officially with knowledge. So that was an interesting piece, that you've got a Roman road there on right next to the river, because obviously it was next to the river only a little way away, and it would be a reasonable area that they could cultivate in Roman times.
And what happened to it in the end? Did
It was covered in and hasn't been touched since, and I think it's largely forgotten.
In this little book here, Ken, your cycleway 21. It says in about 1973, before the flood prevention work, an archaeological investigation was done on the south side of the path to the railway bridge.
That's at Windsor's Road Bridge, yes.
This was a line proposed by I.D. Margery for the Roman Lewis Way, coming down from the alignment point on Blythe Hill.
Yes, that's right.
A good quantity of pottery from the 3rd and 4th centuries was recovered and deposited with Lewisham Local Studies.
Yes, well that's in Lewisham, that particular bit.
Yes.
Nobody's ever found the road in Lewisham. We've had a dig on Blythe Hill and didn't find it. The dig there at Windsor's Road didn't find it either. Although Margaret made a good case for where it was likely to be. But because of changes, building the railway and realigning it through the gasworks and all sorts of things, you can't be relying too much on it.
What's interesting about all of that is that I remember in your book you were talking about the crossing at the river crossing at Lee. Where is it? It's Beaumont Hill, the one that comes down from Beaumont Hill.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a very, very old crossing there.
Yeah.
And you see, all these old crossings, they must be connected to some road or what have you, or something.
Oh yes, it was
So there are lots
adjacent to the road where the river comes down.
There are lots of clues along the Quaggy, aren't there, where
Yes,
these roads
that
may...
particular one, they referred to it in the New Cross Turnpike minutes, I think, and they said that it was a fordable one and there was no bridge there. It was only much later they put a bridge there, and it speaks about they were losing hope when it flooded, because it did still in that far back. Horses were drowned there.
I just had a look where Blythe Hill was because I don't know this area that well. So
It's actually parallel to Stondon Road, Stondon Park, Brockley Road. If you come up Brockley Road, Blythe Hill there. It's actually very pleasant, Blythe Hill Fields. If you
Oh
go
yes,
there.
it's a good viewpoint.
It's a lovely view, and it's in fact it's higher than Hilly Fields, and I always thought it was. When you're in Hilly Fields and you look at Blythe Hill, you think, well, that's lower. But when you're at Blythe Hill and you look at Hilly Fields, you're much higher.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a
I guess it's something over 60 metres there.
yeah, it is incredible.